Welcome back to the lair. Continuing work on the top on the hat for the Cyclone Dust Collector. What I am looking now at is making a little track in the bottom here, following that line, that the swirler will just kind of slip into and be held firm. So probably silicone that in to that little track just to kind of keep it in place. Of course, I have a problem up on the top. I don't want the top flopping around either. So on the top, we'll need to cut a little track all the way around and then have that track come down down the side as well, so that when this flips over, it will be in the right spot. Now, you can already see I've scribbled out the line because this is the inside. This is the outside of the hat. This is the inside of the hat. So that line will need to be around here. You can just barely see my pencil mark. And the track will come down this side. So to cut that track, and I'm going to have to cut a track around here, since this isn't going to be whole, but I'll cut a little track all around the perimeter of that the swirler will fit inside. Again, probably just be siliconed in place. There will be a 4 3/16 hole in the middle to accommodate the pipe that leads to the blower, and then a 3/16 or a little track down here. To do that track, I have a 1/8 inch router bit, so I'm going to set this up in the router table to cut this, and then we'll use my little small freehand router, a little trim router, to cut that using a little guide. So let me get this all set up in the router table and come back when we're ready to cut this track on this surface. All right, we're all set up to take that little pass. I've set the router bit up about a little more than 1/4 of an inch to make the groove on the inside of the top of the hat. So let's get that started. There we are, there's our little track. That will do nicely, thank you. All right, there's our circle cut and cleaned up. The next bit will be putting a tangential line using this bit in the trim router just to come down here. And I want to make sure that I get this distance exactly right. So I took some sandpaper just to get rid of the black paint on this edge so I can see the line a little better. And I used the square to make sure I could get a line that is perfectly at the center of that circle, and mark that out here. And now I'm going from that edge, and I'll go from the middle of the line to there. That's where I want the track to be. So I'll set up the little trim router so that I can go straight down that line. All right, the piece is set up. I sanded a little bit more off so I can see the line that I drew here. I have my little trim router. I now set up with the bit set to the correct depth. So I can simply set that in here. This is my guide piece, so I can just move the router all the way down, cut the slot as we need. So here we go. A little bit noisy, so I'll turn the sound down. And there we go. That's our guide for the swirler. So it can come in here and swirl all the way around, and we'll have a nice, nice fit. Let's give that a try, see what it looks like. Okay, there we are. The swirler is sitting in the guide. You can see them just kind of plop down in there a little bit. Goes all the way around. That'll be holding its shape perfectly. And if we get some silicone or something in there to hold that in firm, that will do the job quite nicely. So I'm going to make the same cut here on the bottom part of the hat, and that will accommodate this edge right here, and then we'll have the thing sitting nicely inside the hat itself. So I'm going to go make that cut now, or at least set up for the cut. I already have the trim router set up with a jig in place to take out that little groove on this side of the bottom of the hat. There we are. So here's a rough idea of how this is going to look now. We got the swirler sitting in the groove on the top. It's upside down, of course. The groove is sitting, the swirler sitting in the groove of the top, and along this edge here, it protrudes through the bottom of the hat and sits in the little groove on the bottom of the hat. Now, what I got to do, it's the swirler, this piece here is too deep, too wide. So I'll put this, get the measurement with the side in place of the distance between the bottom of that groove and the bottom of that groove, and that's how wide this piece needs to be. So we'll get the measurement, and then we're going to trim up this edge, sorry, just this short edge here to the correct dimension. Then we should be able to put the swirler loosely back together and ultimately trim off this edge all around. So let me get that measurement and then cut this piece off here and put it back together. So the distance that we're going for is 5 3/16. So I've marked that on our piece here, and I'm just going to be cutting it with an X-Acto knife, well, a utility knife with a nice fresh blade on it. There we are. So we got a nice straight edge here, good straight edge here, and this is fluff that we'll just cut off. So let me put the hat back together with this in place and see what we have. All right, so there's our hat, loosely assembled with my painter's glue holding the hat together. I've got some pin nails just kind of keeping it tacked in place. So the swirler is now fitting into the groove on the bottom that you can see here, going all the way around and ending here, obviously, and the slot here and here that run back here towards the opening, where we will cut an opening. That seems to be fitting really well. In terms of permanently fastening it in, I'll likely have some screws put in here and at a few strategic points around the perimeter of the lower hat. We'll use silicone to keep it in place on the top. And of course the whole box will be nailed tight shut. So there won't be any room for the swirler to move out of that top slot. Then we'll need to cut off here. So I think I'm at a point where I can mark that. And I'm going to mark it probably just about 1/4 of an inch higher than the bottom of the hat here. So there'll be about a protrusion of about 1/4 of an inch. And that'll give me a nice flowing edge as it goes into the bucket at the top of the Cyclone. So let me mark off the top here, and then we can take the swirler out and cut that edge. So just to show you how I'm marking this edge, I'm just taking a Sharpie, laying it on its edge here, and going around. This isn't an exact cut, so I'm not terribly worried if I'm off by a little bit here or there. In fact, what I will be doing is putting a straight edge along there anyway, and make that cut using a straight edge. This is simply a guide of where I want the cut to be. All right, let me take it out, lay out the swirler, and make the cut. I've got my little utility knife, straight edge laid on the line, make the cut. All right, let's put that back into our little swirler. And the swirler back into the hat, rather. So I found I can take this edge, as long as I get that in there, and I can just feed it in. That works well, and then I can just slip it into the groove on the top part of the hat. Again, working upside down, so. And there we are in. Now if I bring over the bucket, so our top bucket, that will just sit over there nicely. We can screw that down to the hat. Of course, we'll cut out the bottom of this so it fits in and makes a nice fit into the next layer down. So we are now on the way. There's a little bit of work to be done yet with the pipe, so I'm waiting for my drill bit to arrive. I did get a piece of pipe, so I'm going to cut off a section now, and then make a mount that to a jig so I can get a nice curved cut of that pipe as it arrives here, and when it comes through this swirler, it'll be flush all the way around. Make a nice entryway and guide for the dust. So let me cut off a section of pipe and we'll get that in place. All right, so I'm setting up to make an unusual cut on the bandsaw here. So here's the pipe that's going to fit into the hat of our dust collector, and I want that to be cut on make a circle cut here that is 6-inch radius, 12-inch diameter, so that when it slides into the hat like so, we wind up with a cut that matches the inside circumference of our swirler. So here's the theory. On the bandsaw, I have a little circle jig. There's a pin here, 6 inches away from the blade. So as I move this piece, it will cut this in a perfect 6-inch radius circle. What I want to do then is mount this onto that board, kind of like that, so that as I spin this plate with the pipe attached to it, we'll just wind up moving this around. That'll pass through the saw like so, and we'll make that perfect cut on the pipe. That's the theory. So let me get this pipe screwed down here and we'll see what happens. Okay, so I drilled a couple holes in my pipe here. Gonna put some screws through here. Drilled some bigger holes on the other side that will accommodate my screwdriver, so I can get my screwdriver in there to put in the screws. And yeah, next trick is mounting this guy onto this board, and I want to make sure that I get him about 3/8 of an inch away from there. Sorry, 3/16, the thickness of the wall of the pipe. So we'll put them about there and get this one in. So I'll get those screws, got a couple particle board screws here, ready to go in. So let me get the screwdriver all set up for that. I picked the wrong screwdriver off the shelf, so let me get the right one. Okay, got the screws mounted in there. So this is all part of the sacrificial part, so this will be cut off. This is the piece that I'm going to keep. This is the piece I'm going to keep. From here down, that's just going to get cut off. So we'll go over to the bandsaw, we'll slip this on and see what happens. What could possibly go wrong? So I made a little change to this board that I'm using to mount. What I discovered or realized is that as this turns on or pivots on the bandsaw, I'm not going to have enough clearance to get by that clamp. So I just made this little change, and I also made sure I had enough here to make a purchase on the pin. And I'm just kind of lining it up to get about the edge of that. I think we want to be there. We're now pivoting. That's right on the edge of the pipe. So let's let her rip, see what happens. right, there's our cut. That'll just follow the radius of our swirler perfectly. Got quite a little taper edge on here. Wasn't quite expecting that, but that's a really fine point. All right, success. Woohoo! Now I gotta get this thing off the saw. Alrighty, I got my fancy hole saw from Amazon. Just arrived, so curious thing looking at it. It seems out of the package that the this blade is sloped in this way, and this blade over here is sloped in this way. I would have thought they'd both be sloped in the same way, but no, that's actually correct. What'll happen is it'll make a chisel cut. So as it's going through the bottom, this will cut in this side of the hole. This will cut in on the inside of the hole. Sorry, this will cut the outside of the hole. That'll cut the inside of the hole, and the hole is groove is going to be the width of that blade. Anyway, I'm going to set up in the drill press, do a test hole. I set it up to be the size of the pipe that's going to be used for the dust collector. It also comes with this little gizmo here, which is used for drilling holes in sheet metal, apparently, or thin sheet goods. So you put that in instead of the twist drill. So I'll get that set up in the drill press, do a test hole, and show you how it looks. All right, so here's the hole saw set up in the drill press. Turn this on. These things are going to go whipping around. This thing looks scary, so I'll just show you. I'll turn it on here and just take a look at what you see. These things whip around faster than you can see them. So yeah, this is an operation where hands are well away from a workpiece. So I'm going to clamp this thing down firmly and then give it a test cut. But there's no way I'm getting my hands anywhere near this. I'll be back when I have it clamped. All right, I have the piece clamped. I'm going to hold on over here. Let's see what happens. I'm going to run this at very slow speed. Now in the instructions, they suggest using the donut method, which is you cut through halfway, flip the board over, and then cut through the other way. So I'm going to do that. Just having a look at these blades, the way they go in though, clearly the markings on the bar are not at all accurate. So this is cutting a hole in a really weird way. But I'll finish cutting it. What I can see, the blade here that's supposed to be cutting the inside edge is out too far, and the blade that's cutting the outside edge is in too far. So I think the markings on the guide bar are inaccurate. But I'll carry on. This is why you do test cuts, right? So I'm going to flip it over, come through the other way, and just see what the size hole is when I'm done with it. It's supposed to be 107 millimeters in diameter. We'll see what it is in reality. I'll flip the board over and come back when that's ready. All right, we'll come back through again. Finish going all the way through the hole. Here's our donut. So you can see, even just with the profile of this, how this is not an even cut. Those bits are just out by a mile. Look at that. I'd expect to see a clean edge, but that's not even close. I'll see how big this hole is. Looks like I've got 2 dimensions to play with, so we'll figure it out. Okay, so here's a piece of PVC pipe that we're trying to use for the dust collector, and this is the hole we just cut. So this is the wide, I'll call it the wide side, this is the narrow side. Wide side, we're smack on. So one of those blades on the hole saw is set to the correct dimension, the other one is not. So I'm going to adjust the bits on that, kind of learn what the compensating factor is. And then I'll do another test cut, another hole in this piece of wood. But if I can get a hole that's that size, we're in business. So let me fiddle with that blade a little bit and I'll come back. So here's a close-up look at the bit and the plug that we cut. So on one side, it's quite clear over here that the outside edge, this flat edge, is on where this got cut, and the inside edge is into the plug. On the other side, we can see that the inside edge is on the outside, and the outside edge here is cutting the void. So this is the edge that is giving us the cut that we want, the whole diameter that I want. This guy needs to be moved out that way, the width of that blade. Now on this guide bar, they're both bits are set to be at 107 millimeters. Give or take a fraction of a millimeter. So you can see there's a scale on there, and they're both set to the same distance. You would think that would mean that they would be cutting a hole of that size, but not quite. So beware when you buy one of these little gizmos that, not exactly what you think. So I'll make this minor adjustment. I'll make the minor adjustment on this guy. I'll move him out just a little wee bit, the width of that blade, and we'll do another test cut. All right, I've got you up close and personal for this view. Okay, right away I can see there are 2 cut marks, an inside edge and an outside edge. So this is significantly better than what we did the last time out. So carry on. Right, and I'll flip this over and do the donut. That is making a much better cut. That looks reasonable. Oh wait, we're ready to come through the other side. And a donut. So you can see on this cut, we actually have a straight edge. So I think that hole saw is now doing what it's supposed to do. So I'll take this piece out and we'll see how it fits with our PVC pipe. So how does it fit? Like a glove. That's perfect. So the actual piece that we want to put in is this guy. Of course, not into this hole. I have to drill the hole in the right spot, but that's what we want. Coming into our hat, probably like so, to meet up with the swirler. Oh yeah, looking good, looking good. All right, so the next step with our hat here, we're gonna use our new hole saw to drill that hole. So I'm gonna take the end off and move it over to the drill press, clamp it on, we'll cut that hole. All right, have you up close and personal for this cut? Alrighty, that worked really well. Next piece I have to cut is going to be the top. We want to cut a hole through there, but I got a bit of a problem. I'll show you in just a second. So here's the little problem that I've got. I have reached the limits of my drill press. I need to drill a hole there, but I'm a good 1.25 inches, 1.5 away from what I need. It's an 8-inch drill press. And I need to be about 10 or 14. So, all right, plan B will be to cut this using a hand drill. Yeah, that's going to be scary. But we'll get the whole thing clamped down really well. Give it a shot. So I'll get you set up for that. So I'm going to drill out a hole in the top. I have a pilot hole in the top already that was used for the pin that we used when we were cutting this circle on the router table. So I'm going to enlarge that hole to be just slightly smaller than the center bit in this hole saw, just to help me ensure, since I have to cut this by hand, that that's going to be as vertical as possible. If I just do it freehand, I think I'm with the 1/8 hole, I'm likely to wander a little bit. So I'm going to drill a hole that's a little bit bigger, and that will be a better guide for this bit. Now even this jig, although not perfect, is better than freehand, so I'll just drill that hole out now. Yeah, it's just slightly undersized, almost exact. That'll be perfect. Much better guide to hold this vertically. All right, and we'll do this in 2 passes. We'll go through a little ways and then flip it over and drill the donut. What could possibly go wrong? Already got the top clamped down. Let's just let her rip, see what happens. All right, I'll flip it over and come through the other way. Hey, we got a donut. And fragments. And a nice looking hole. Let's see how that handles a PVC pipe. Like a glove. Wonderful. Okay, alrighty, back on the hat. The big picture, we got our swirler inside. We got the pipe now protruding through the hole that we just cut. And I did make a miscalculation. I actually cut this a little too short. I needed it to be out a little bit farther. However, one of the benefits of being able to do whatever I want, I'm going to simply trim about 1 inch off this box. I don't have to have it this long. So if I trim 1 inch off, that lets me bring this pipe forward a little bit. I'm not wasting any pipe. The reason that it's not quite long enough is I cut the end that has the fitting for another pipe to fit right inside. So I don't need any adapter. The next piece that comes right from the room will just fit directly in there without a coupler. So I'm going to shorten this up just a little bit, about 1 inch. That lets me bring the pipe forward, and you can see that the cut that we made with the bandsaw is just going to mirror that cut in there perfectly. Then we'll need to figure out how to cut this to go around our swirler. Or cut the swirler to go around the pipe, sorry. But, you know, one thing at a time. Next up, we'll trim off the box. All right. So here is the hat reassembled, shortened by 1 1/4 inch. Pipe comes in very nicely. Just going to flip this up carefully. Well, you can't see the pipe unless I flip it over this way. There we are. So the pipe comes in. The next challenge, of course, is figuring out exactly where to cut that out. But I saw this tip handy, using a fancy flashlight that lights up exactly where the inside of the pipe is going to be. So I can trace around there, mark that, and then cut it out, and I have an exact fitting for the pipe entry into the swirler. Oh, we are getting close. Next is going to be a need for some polypropylene glue and some screws. But hey, we're getting there. We're nearly done with the hat. So I just had a realization that before I mark the swirler using my flashlight technique, I better make sure that I have the inlet pipe positioned in the right spot. With the pipe set in here in the correct orientation, not twisted one way or the other, I need it to follow, fundamentally the bottom of the pipe needs to follow the ridge, the line that we cut in here going back. So it roughly be positioned there. The conundrum I'm in right now is a chicken and egg thing. Do I mount this and then cut the swirler, or do I cut the hole for the swirler and then mount this? And I'm thinking what I will do is mark and cut the hole in the swirler to accommodate the pipe, and then I have a little bit of flexibility here in terms of mounting, formally putting that down onto the hat. So I'll set up the swirler with the flashlight, trace it, and cut that hole. All right, I got you repositioned a little better so you can see what I'm doing. So turn on the flashlight, and it shines through pretty well. So I'm just going to trace around where that light is. All right, that's the rough line traced. I'll take that out and trim it. I thought I'd show you what I'm doing. Just made a quick cut with my utility knife. I'm just using scissors now to go around the curve. This seems to cut pretty easily with scissors. Okay, let's see what happens with this. I expect this will go in and out about 30 times in this process, so you may not have the patience to watch it all, so I'll probably cut out a few of these iterations. Okay, we are in there. Okay, I'll continue fiddling with this a little bit off camera and come back when I have a fit that I think is going to work. So I made a couple little more adjustments and opted, I think, for this approach. So two things to note. One is, as the air circulates around here, it will pass over the edge. When I have all this finally mounted and glued in place, I'm going to just kind of trim up this edge with some sandpaper or a rasp or file or something to get it flush with the inside edge of the pipe, so there's no resistance as the air comes through this way and butts up against that edge. I want that to be flush with the pipe. However, as the air flows around, there'll be no intrusion here as it runs past the pipe, and then I put this part of the swirler behind the pipe rather than in front of it as it was before. So I think that will kind of give the cleanest airflow for particles swirling around this way, and for air coming in this way, there'll be no interference anywhere it goes. So I'm going to go get some PP glue, polypropylene bonding agent, I've read that you can't glue polypropylene, you bond it. So get some of that. I'm going to make that little mounting bracket that sits behind this so that I can screw the pipe into that mounting bracket and keep it firm and keep it from rotating in any way. And yeah, then we're pretty much done with the hat. We could start mounting the cone on the bottom of it. So, yeah. Be back soon. So I'm working on the little block that'll go underneath the pipe to provide some support here. So this is made up of a little block and a little wedge. Now that wedge, I figured out, determine the wedge that needs to follow. I need an angle that'll follow this. You can see this has got a slight taper to it as it moves up. So I've got this, I always keep a few little wedge pieces handy. And this one worked out really well. So I can get that wedge flush on that side. And then on this side, it just follows that angle perfectly. I've got a little gap down here, but it'll just follow that edge perfectly to provide the support that I want. So I'm going to clamp this together, glue this little wedge and block together, and then it'll get glued onto the side of the hat. So I got the little piece cut with the wedge in the bottom, but it occurred to me overnight that I also want to be able to provide some support here for the swirler as it comes around. Right now it's just going to be resting on there. And looking at glues, I didn't find any glue that is going to work to connect polypropylene to PVC, polyvinyl chloride. So I thought, well, in the middle of the night it occurred to me, why don't I just build another ring that goes all the way around? So that's what I've done. I just created another complete ring that, when inserted, is going to provide the appropriate support that I need all the way around. So now I can pin the inlet pipe to there. I have a purchase area here for the swirler, so that can mount, and it also provides support for the swirler all the way around the hat. So that's the approach I'm going to take. I'm going to put that in, and I'll do a test fit with the swirler and see how we look. All right, I am very pleased with that result. You can just kind of barely see there the line of that new inner ring as it goes all the way around. That needs to be brought up just slightly higher. So I'll get that positioned in place. And then I think we are ready to assemble the hat. Battery. So I'm going to glue and pin nail all the edges on, and then we're going to run silicone all around the inside of the box with just the lower hat, or with this piece on. This is the top, actually. Bottom. No, that is the bottom. Then I'm going to put the middle layer in, and then we'll put on the top. And I'm going to try to get silicone in going from the top down. Silicone on the inside edge of the top before we put in the swirler. Meantime, we'll carry on with the with the edges. All right, I got the sides put together, and you can see just kind of down in here, I've got a bead of silicone running all along the inside edge. I put the, let's call it the swirler brace in the box. That's just held in place with some particle board screws. I haven't glued that in. And last piece now is to put the top on. So I'm going to run a little bead of glue all around the edge. Set that down in. Want to make sure that I absolutely get it in the right way. It would be a disaster if I did that wrong now. So I'll run a bead of glue all the way around there, and then we'll tack it in with some pin nails, reach inside and apply some silicone through the bottom to the outside edges all around. All right, we now have the top and bottom on the hat. It's all in place. Swirler guide is in place. I've put some silicone all around the bottom edge. This was a little bit tricky to get into, but I managed to get it. You see a little spot here that wasn't smoothed out quite right. There we are. So I'm pleased with what we've got in place now for the hat. I'll put the swirler back in, and then we'll insert the pipe, and with some sheet metal screws, or sorry, the particle board screws again, I'm just going to tack down the pipe in place. Then we'll put in some little small screws along here just to hold the swirler in place in the top of the hat, and we'll be able to call it done. All right, so let's get the swirler back in place. It's a little trickier now, especially with the center swirler guide in place. Okay, get that there. Trying to encourage the swirler to sit in the little slot we've cut in the top of the hat. Okay, we seem to be in place. Insert the pipe. Tuck this in behind. I think right there we are good. It'll take a little bit of sanding on this, but I'll do that after we get everything screwed in and mounted. So I'm going to put probably a little screw in here with a flathead screw in there just to hold that in tight. That will be the only real intrusion, I think. Well, we'll have some flathead screws around this edge too. But. All right, let me go get some flathead screws. First, I'm going to put down this screw this in here with a particle board screw just to keep that locked in the spot that we want it. So I managed to get a flathead screw here. I was able to drill in countersink and put that flathead screw, and I just put it on the downward edge of the tongue, I'll call that, of the inlet pipe so that it's as much out of the way the airflow as possible. And then I put just one of those particle board screws in here to hold the swirler up tight against this inlet pipe. I used a particle board screw because I don't have enough thickness here to make anything countersink. And I think it would just get ripped off there in a real hurry. So the next little bit is I'm going to trim this piece up in here where it overhangs the inlet pipe. So there is currently a bit of an obstruction as the air flows in here, so I'm going to trim that back a little bit. And then the last thing that I'm going to do is use, actually I'll do this before I trim, is use some of this glue. This is some LePage's super glue designed specifically for difficult plastics and specifically polypropylene, which is what I've got here. So we'll tack a little bit of polypropylene glue right here on this flange. I'm not worried about this one because it's held in tight against the track that we put on the bottom of the, or actually the top of the hat. So he's nicely entrenched in there and tucked in firmly underneath the pipe. So he's not gonna go anywhere. This piece could possibly flop around a little bit. So I'm just gonna put a little bit of glue right on that seam, just a drop. And there it is, that's the hat completed. Next bit will be the cone. So I'll end this video here in the series. Sorry, this is the end of part 2. Part 3 will be the cone. It'll be a fairly short series. It won't take, I don't expect it to take long to put that together. So the last of the series will be assembling the cone, attaching the pipes, and we'll see if we can actually get a test. But thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe.